again, so no hot takes. Like some of these calls were ridiculous, but I do need someone to counteract my bias here. I don't know that Tom Brady flopped as much as Mahomes does. Zach, if you could, you obviously
first of all,
not saying I can. Not saying that Brady did not get calls. That's not what I'm saying here.
Okay.
But I think there's more selling to the officials from Mahomes than there was for Brady. I can be wrong. Please let me know. You actually, this is a good perspective. You as the Texans fan not only got this whole game this weekend, but got Brady a couple of times in the playoffs.
Yeah, no, there you go. I don't remember a time when the Texans played the Patriots in the playoffs where I got as frustrated at a quarterback as I did Patrick Mahomes. And it wasn't just like, obviously there's things that happened that was like, okay, that was going to happen. Like I can tell you who I honestly got more upset about was just Travis Kelce's little like, oh, I'm the king of the fucking dodgeball rec league over the DB that he caught the touchdown over. Like, come on, buddy. But
he could barely stand over.
Yeah, it was just like hovering over him. But like the push out of bounds where he just kept kind of like going to like, I get there was a bit of a shove, right? Mm-hmm. And I get him kind of going forward a little bit more. That's cool. But after a while, it just felt like then it became comical of how much it was. Like
that was the one. That was the one where I was like, I know Brady bitched to the refs. I know Brady got the benefit of some calls. I know that. But that play there, Brady never did that in his career. Never once. And I know he didn't get out of the pocket as much, but he did get out of the pocket sometimes. And he had, and in fact, I think it's easier if you're a non-running quarterback to sell calls like that.
Yeah.
Because no one expects you to get hit. They don't see you get hit. That to me, I was like, that's something Brady never did. In fact, on the off chance that Brady did get hit, he was a psycho. He'd be like, hell yeah. And he'd like bump helmets with the guy.
Yeah, that's true. If anything, I remember being like, oh, come on. You don't have to act like that. Like he's a different way. Yeah.
Annoying in a different way. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But the thing that also got me was the fact that the unnecessary roughness call is the one that got me the most because it was, I watched it over and over again. And of course, like the booth tended to agree of like, I remember Aikman being like, yeah, they shouldn't have called that. But when the two defensive players hit each other harder than it seemed like they just kind of hovered over him as Mahomes slid underneath and somehow that was unnecessary roughness. Like I'm not one to come out and be like, oh, the Texans lost to the refs on Saturday. Like, no. The Texans lost for a multitude of reasons. That offense has been terrible and predictable, and C.J. Stroud has faced some of the most 3rd and 10s all season long. That offense, like he's had no help. The pressures that they were able to get to him. There's so many other
line stinks. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm not going to fully blame it on the refs because just to do that is stupid. But there were calls that were made that for sure benefited Patrick Mahomes, and at times it felt helped carry that Chiefs momentum. Mm-hmm. And that was weird. Like, again, the Texans got in their own way. Missing a PAT, like, come on, you could have tied it up there. There's things like that they did to themselves. But then it would be like they'd get close, and then there was that unnecessary roughness call. Or there was thankfully, they didn't call anything, but there's Mahomes acting like it's fucking group play of the World Cup, and he's got a flop in the middle of it to get somebody to call something for him.
The thing that I thought about was, like, we're going to see the replays of that for a long time. Even though it's a divisional round game, like, we're going to see a lot of that flop and the unnecessary roughness. People are going to be using that on a long list of, like, compilation of, like, hey, here's how Mahomes get the calls. And so I thought about this during the game when I was trying to remove my bias of, let's think of the two plays in Brady's career in the playoffs that people like, oh my God, Tom got totally bailed out. Two of them, right? Sure. It was the tuck rule against Oakland and what would have been the game-sealing pick in the 2018 AFC Championship game in Kansas City, but the guy whose name I can't remember lined up offsides. So those were the two plays that everyone was like, oh my God, Brady bailed out again. And I look at those, like, unequivocally the guy was lined up offsides. It didn't affect the pick, so that's why people got mad. but he was offside. That's a penalty. That's subjective. And the other one, the tuck rule, like you could argue that was a shit rule, which I get it. I totally get that. But it was the rule. Like it was a bad rule, but they got the call right. These are subjective calls that are subjective calls that are objectively shit. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just, it does suck. And then, then you get the nightcap where Goff gets leveled after one of his picks. Like, that's football. But now what you're going to get is fans on social media putting it out there saying, if this was Mahomes, they would have had a firing squad at the 50-yard line. You know what I mean? And there's some sort of truth to that. You know what I mean? Probably not a firing squad. Probably not. But I don't know what the other.
But no, yeah, for sure.
But you just look at it through a different lens when it's Mahomes, and it just stinks. And now this Chiefs team looks like that early 2000s Patriots team. Of obviously they have the clutch quarterback. They've got the guy with the ice in his veins. But this team is winning on defense and football IQ and home field advantage and like all those other things. And God, I hope Buffalo beats them.
I do too.
Like this has been a hot button topic for Patriots fans of like, hey, should you be rooting for a team within your own division? And like, honestly, I find it quite easy to root for Buffalo. And I'll rope you back into this, Zach. 2017.
Yeah.
Texans, I believe, made the playoffs that year as a wild card. And Jacksonville made it to the AFC Championship game against the Patriots. I can't put you in a more even situation here, right? Like, okay, a team in my division is going up against the Dynasty, the big bad Chiefs. Let's take it back to a team in your division going against the big bad Patriots. Did you root for the Jags?
I did. I rooted for the Jags. I remember watching that game. I think the Texans. I don't think the Texans made the playoffs that year. I could be wrong. It could be confusing. I think it was like the Titans were a wild card team that year, and it was the Titans and Jags or something.
Yes, you know what it was because that's who the Patriots played the round before.
Yep, and they beat Mariota to get to So I remember though watching, and I oddly, unless I'm just completely misremembering this game, I don't think so. I remember it was a very low scoring game.
Yep.
And it was close. And I remember like there was plays that like, what was it? Miles Jack was on defense for the Jags. And they were talking about just like, how he needed to step and they just couldn't. I remember like
that was actually a big time controversial call that they got wrong that benefited the Patriots. That was the fumble. They said Dion Lewis was down and he was not. And I think they ended up scoring on that drive or at least took a touchdown. It would have been a strip six. So anyway,
all that being said is as much as I do not like the Jags, I was indeed rooting for them against the Patriots. Yes,
no problem.
It's like what the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Except in this case, if you don't like any of them, you just find in your mind who you think the lesser evil is. At that time, as a fan, which I'm sure that other fan bases feel this. At that time, as an NFL fan and a fan of a franchise who maybe it can win one playoff game a year and that's it, has never been to the big one. When you see a team win year in and year out, no matter who it is, you eventually get tired of it. And I think that obviously that's the Chiefs now. It was the Patriots then.
Yep.
I would much rather have to deal with the Patriots now than have to deal with the Chiefs team. But I think it was one of those times of where you're like, somebody just needs to stop this from happening. So I will even root for a divisional team that I cannot stand. The team who is, seems like the little brother of the entire division. I will root for them, even though they're not the youngest team in there, instead of rooting for the Patriots.
What makes that Patriots team different from this Chiefs team in terms of how you see it as a fan? Because I can't do it. I love the Patriots. So
I guess for me,
because I am seeing that around social media. People are like, this was not the same. I remember like the Patriots were so hated. Like I've tried to put out there that this Chiefs team is just as hated and people have really pushed back. So
I think maybe that's what it is, oddly enough. I think somehow along the way, and this might be a little bit of a hot take, but I'm just going to go with it, is that non-hardcore football fans don't buy it the same way that they did the Patriots. People before, when they would come into just to watch the Super Bowl, they'd pick a team or, start paying attention on the playoff time. For some reason, they jumped on the zeitgeist of, yeah, we're all supposed to hate the Patriots. Mm-hmm. And like everybody else went with it. It's different now. And maybe it's because of, Travis Kelce's dating Taylor Swift. Maybe it's because they're making Hallmark movies about this team. Maybe it's because Andy Reid's on State Farm commercials. Like Bill Belichick was never going to do anything like that.
That's a lot of it. You see these guys a lot more outside of the arena.
And I think everybody likes them off the field, that you don't have as many people hate the dynasty as much as they did the Patriots before, because they were winning. And then when you saw them off the field, it's all about how Belichick's weird and kooky of like the way he, is as a coach, but, everything you would hear about them covered would all be like, Deflategate, or them at practice, like, they got to cheat to like everything was about how much they hated this team. Yeah. And the Chiefs have none of that.
So that kind of goes into what I think of this the way the Patriots were perceived versus how the Chiefs are, with the cheating scandals and them just, quite literally making something out of nothing. Like Deflategate was nothing. Spygate isn't as bad as people think, but it was against the rules. Deflategate was nothing, and they made that into the worst thing ever.
As a non-Patriots fan, if I may add that, I've always had the point, like even if they caught everything, like after halftime, it is purely fine regularly inflated balls, and that's when they ran up the score and just killed them after
28-0 after that. Yep, I was at that game, and so there's that, and like I can speak to this without bias because I was so into it for so long, and now somewhat loosely part of the media. But the way the national media views these teams, I think, are completely different. Mm-hmm. In that, whenever the Patriots were in big games or in the playoffs, kind of the same way you see with the Celtics now, actually, like the media will find ways to talk themselves into why the Patriots are going to lose. And they don't it seems like they've just given up on that with the Chiefs way early. They're just like, I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. Would you? Like, it's always how great the Chiefs are. And I'm not saying there weren't some people filleting the Patriots during those runs, but a lot of times it was, no, here's how the Eagles will beat them with Donovan McNabb, and no, they don't, they don't stand a chance, or Eli's going to get them again, which ended up being right.
Here's how Vic Delhomme is going to figure out the Patriots defense. Like
Matt Ryan, MVP, like this offense, or they can't do it against the Legion of Boom. And like every time it was something, and every time it was, now it's this team's time. And it just always felt like, the Patriots probably overblew how much people were doubting them, but it was always someone else's time to take the mantle. And here with the Chiefs, it's like, well, we just got to wait for Mahomes to be gone, the same way we did for LeBron in the Eastern Conference, which again was fine. But I think that kind of rubs some people the wrong way, whether they know it or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, I have no problem rooting for the Bills, man. I'll be rooting like hell for the Bills, and I would have rooted for the Ravens. But, the Ravens fans have won one. Lamar, I got nothing against Lamar. I thought that was an awesome drive yesterday. Would have been happy for him if it was him. But, yeah, I will have no problem rooting for the Bills, and I will have no problem. Someone put this out on Twitter, Can we just have a Bills Commanders Super Bowl? Because in that, we just can fucking take the day off. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to piss me off if one team wins.
Yeah.
Like, that means we're going to get an Eagles Chiefs. But, I would love for a Bills Commanders, even though,
the Commanders don't have a shot, right? Like, there's no way. I think surprised they beat Detroit, but.
I think, let's say this, I wasn't totally stunned by the Detroit loss.
Okay.
I was surprised. But we've seen some teams get after that defense, and to the point where it was like, I was surprised the rookie quarterback did it to them. Like, let's give the flowers where they're due. But I wasn't like, oh my God, how did that happen? I was like, you know what? The Lions defense was a little sus. And Jared Goff, as you saw with that Houston game earlier this year, has a propensity to turn the ball over. Texans did not take advantage of that. Washington did. I think Washington's a great story for an okay sports town. Okay fan base, bad sports town. Okay fan base, Washington. And I like Jaden Daniels, man. I wanted the Patriots to draft Jaden Daniels. They didn't have the shot to. I'm very happy with Drake May. But of course, like, this ain't even just revisionist history. Like, I think the Patriots would have drafted Daniels if he was there. If they had the number 2 pick, let's say, and they had the option of both, I think they would have picked him, no question. And yeah, it's kind of frustrating that the Patriots and Washington had the same record last year and both went into the season with new head coaches and rookie quarterbacks and won 4 games like they did last year and the others in the NFC Championship game. But hey, maybe it gives hope to Mike Vrabel. You know, Dan Quinn, second go around. Here we are. Did a heck of a job this year. But yes, I mean, Bills, Commanders, Super Bowl, that's going to feed families, brother. That is going to feed some families. And I don't care that they play in the AFC East. I will root for the Bills to win the Super Bowl. I don't care, man. That is a hell of a fan base. And if they do win a Super Bowl, or God forbid multiple, they will become completely obnoxious. And I'll point back to this and say, why did you even want this to happen? But
nobody's folding tables will be safe. But
they are a great fan base. They deserve to win something. Okay, they deserve to win something. They are one of the ultimate cursed franchises in pro sports, and they're also a city that has like the chip on its shoulder kind of thing. So I'm into that. I'm into them winning the Super Bowl, and they're all likable, man. I think you can say the same about Washington too. Jaden Daniels likable as hell.
We are Rogue Media Sports.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. And if you like this video, be sure to give us a like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel a ton. You can follow me on Twitter here for some more outrageous Boston sports takes coming to you every weekday at noon Eastern time. And then after that, wherever you get your podcasts.
We are Rogue Media Sports.